everyone, my name is Catherine Trumbull Femwright, and I'm a visual artist and teaching artist with a background in painting and drawing, although I really like to refer to myself as a maker. I make paintings, I make drawings, and I make small sculptural objects, all using different kinds of materials. I basically like to make things with my hands. I'm also interested in exploring new materials, not necessarily new store-bought materials, but old materials given a new purpose. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to make something using Plarn, which is a new purpose for plastic bags. Okay, so let's review the materials that we will need to make our Plarn pouch. So as I mentioned in the introduction, Plarn is going to be made from the plastic bags. So it's plastic bags into a yarn called Plarn, all right? And we're gonna weave these to make a little pouch, like so. This one took one plastic bag, as did this one. So I think today I'll demonstrate one using two bags that will give us a pouch about the size of both of these, approximately 5 inches by 7 inches. The materials that we're going to use is we need a piece of cardboard, something pretty stiff. This came from the back of a notepad paper and is 8 inches by 5 inches. So you can see that's about the size that our pouch will turn out. It will be a little smaller than the surface of this cardboard. We need some scissors. A ruler will be helpful. We're going to use some yarn. If you don't have yarn and you have string, that would be great, or this is some twine that could work also. A pencil is helpful. I use a chopstick for my spacer, and I'll explain how that works in a minute. If you don't have a chopstick, you can use the pencil instead. Paper clips, just one, but I have a couple different ones here, 2 different sizes. We'll eventually sew it closed with a button. So I have a button here, a couple buttons. And then of course 2 plastic bags. So that's our materials list. The first thing that we're going to do is to prepare our loom. The cardboard is going to be our loom. So I'm going to just clear my workspace a little bit here, push a few things off to the side. Leave that materials list there for you can see it. And I'll move these 2 guys off to the side. So the loom needs to have notches on both of the long edges. This will be the top and the bottom of your pouch. So to make those notches, we use our ruler and we use a pencil or a marker, and we mark every 1/2 inch all the way across. And then we move our ruler and we mark the 1/2 inch to complete. We're going to do the same thing on the exact opposite side, so that way those marks are directly across from one another. That will keep your weaving straight. Hopefully you can see these. I will hold it up in a minute so you can see that. So I've pencil marked both sides, and then I take my scissors and I cut just about a 1/4 inch in. You can see I already cut this side, so you can see it. And now I will demonstrate cutting on the other side. It's best to open your scissors all the way up like an alligator mouth, all the way open, and put your cardboard all the way to the end, and then just make a little cut. If you try to just cut with the snips, the corners, and snip it on the ends, they might not be strong enough. So you get it in and you gently squeeze. And it's just a little slit. It doesn't have to be a very deep cut at all. If you have to have an adult help you with this, that's perfectly fine. Cardboard is thick, thicker than paper. So cutting it takes a little hand muscle. And I think this gives you an even number of slits. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So odd number of slits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Good, I have 15 on each side. So I'm gonna work with the yarn. I like the color, I think it'll be sort of fun. And the first thing we're gonna do is slide a piece of that yarn through the very first slit. And it might be a good idea to put a little knot in it so that it can't slide through. So I kind of pull it snug and the knot is caught on the back. And we are gonna wrap this yarn going through one slit at the top, down to the matching slip at the bottom, up on the back side, down on the front side, makes a little clicking noise as it goes into the slit, which is great. And you just keep going. I'm pulling tight, but not so tight that I would be like causing the cardboard to bend at all. But I don't want to have it too loose either. You can see my yarn straps are pretty tight. So over the top, in the top slit, that one I did not cut very deep. Oh, there we go. Need a little extra yarn. So I'm continuing. I might flip this over so that I have the finished side to hold on to. I'm coming up through one slit and down through the corresponding slit, up through the bottom, down through the top, up, down, up, and down. And then I will cut my yarn, leaving a pretty long tail, and I'm gonna put a knot in it so it doesn't slide out of its slit. And right now, I'll just leave that tail. I don't mind having that long. I may need it later, I may weave it back in. But this is now our loom, okay? We had our cardboard, we made our slits, and we wrapped it with yarn. So now we are going to weave it with Plarn, okay? So doing the weaving, we're gonna go over, under each green stripe. And one of the things that you can do to help you is to put a spacer in. In traditional weaving, this is called a shuttle, and it serves a very important purpose. For us, I'm gonna use this chopstick, and you can see that I pushed it through over and under each one. And what that does is it creates a little space so that when I go to weave, it will be easier to get my weaving material over, under. And then I can move the spacer as needed as we complete our weaving. So like I said, if you didn't have a popsicle stick, you could use a pencil. Wondering, my pencil might not be long enough. I have a new pencil here. Over, under, and I just kind of pick up the yarn and scoot the pencil, and there you go. And so I'm going to try this with one on each side. Sometimes I have one on the front and not on the back, just to sort of feel how the difference is. When you're making things, you got to figure out what works best for you. So that is our shuttle, or spacer as I call it. We're going to set the loom aside now, and we are going to make the Plarn with our plastic bag. So we lay our plastic bag out, kind of smooth it out as best we can. They have these little folds here, so we get them all smooth. We're gonna cut off the bottom. And the nice thing about yarn is sometimes you can just push your scissors and it cuts off real simply. And we're gonna cut off the handles. Here I'm opening and closing my scissors to make sure that I'm making a cut. And it looks like I missed the bottom layer, so I'm just gonna come back and make the cut. So that is now scrap. That is waste, okay? So So this is one very large tube, okay, of plastic. We're gonna fold it in half and in half again. And you know, it's so soft and flexible, we can even fold it in half again. And now we're gonna take our scissors and we're gonna cut sections. I'm not even measuring, it's about 1 inch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I thought I'd get about 12, 11, 12, 13. All right? So each of these things that we have cut are now a loop, right? So we took that large tube that came from the plastic bag and we've made loops. And we're gonna connect these loops to make a continuous ball of Plarn. And the way to do that is to open them up. And the easiest way that I can explain it, sometimes it matters if you're left or right-handed, but I'm gonna try it one way, is you're gonna thread one of the loops through the other. So you can see it's through the loop. Short little end on one side, a lot of extra on the other. The short end you want to sort of open up with your fingers. And you're gonna bring the long end through. And gently, I'm just sort of gently pulling to make a knot. Plastic is very strong, but it's also stretchy. So I'll just show you, I can pull it, pull it, pull it, and I'm not really tearing it, but I am stretching it, okay? So we don't want to pull it so tight that we're creating stretches in there, but we want to have a fairly continuous piece of Plarn. I'll do one more. So I take my loop and I take the Plarn that I have just made out of 2, and I'll see if I can do it in reverse this way. So right hand, left hand. So we put it through, kind of makes a T shape. And then we pull that long tail through. You might find a way that's easier for you. I would recommend just doing 1 or 2 loops, because if you have a long, long bit of Plarn, then the weaving gets a little tedious. Okay, so we got 3. We'll start with 3, and then we can add these as we go. So we'll bring our loom back into play here. You can really start at either top or bottom, or distinguish one or the other from top or bottom. So I'll start down here in this corner, and you're gonna take the, both loops, you're gonna kind of squeeze them together. Now here's something that's helpful. You might want to tie it on to a paper clip. Sometimes you can just puncture it with a paper clip, and the paper clip almost acts like a needle, like as if you threaded your Plarn in a needle. So there I just poked the plastic through the tip of that paper clip, okay? And that you can hold onto, and now I'm gonna follow, I'm gonna start under, over, under, and I'm just passing it through. Sometimes that paper clip can be a problem because the yarn gets caught in there. Over and under, over and under. And I'm going to tell you right now that I am probably going to take my paper clip off, because I think it's just easy enough to push through with your hands. The green stripes are not that close together. I'll finish this row. And what I like to do is get it all through, get all the way to the end here, and then I pull it. Pull it, pull it, pull it. I'm going to take my paper clip off because I don't know that I'm going to use that. And when I get this tail here, I'm going to bring it to the back side, and I'm under on this side, so I'm going to bring it over this one, and I'm going to go under, over, under, over, under, over, pull it kind of tight. It doesn't quite make it all the way across, but that's okay. We're weaving that tail in, and that will hold. Okay, so we're back to our front here. We're gonna wrap this around and flip over, and now we were over this one, we're gonna go under this one. And I'm gonna do it underneath the tail. That way the tail is kind of like row 2, and it will get pressed in between rows 2 and 3. And that will keep it from unraveling. You could knot it. I have seen people knot it on there. You knot at the end where you're beginning, and then you continue. But I like to weave it in. So as you can see, I'm pulling across gently. The knots sometimes get a little stuck on the green, and then I'm pushing it way down. So it's a tight weave. There's my tail, that's row 2. So now I'm gonna come back, and here I'll come back up to make row 2, and I'm over here, so I wanna go, I'm under here, so I wanna go over and then under the next one. And this is what I mean about not using the paper clip and just kind of pushing it with your hands. I lift the yarn a little bit. The spacer should help, giving you some space, but it takes time to weave, so you have to have a bit of patience. Pulling it across, my knot is stuck here, so I kind of keep an eye on that. Okay, and I flip it over. And now I'm really looking, because I want to make sure that that tail is in and that I am opposite the previous row. So over, under, over, under, over, push it under. I'm gonna move that pencil a little bit to give me a little extra room. So see, I'm under here, I was over there, so now I'm over here. And you will find as you go that sometimes you make a mistake and you've got 2 rows where you did the over under the same. It's okay. It'll be a slightly different pattern, but you can pretty much smush it together and it will work itself out. So I'm coming back. In fact, I think that happened here. You can see my pattern, every other one here, and then I'm not. I've got 2 rows under and over and under. So I'm gonna have to correct that. Let's see, if I want this one for sure to be over. So that's an under, over, under, over, under. Yep, so I'll start here, going under, over the second one, under the third, over and under, over and under, over and under, over and under. And I'm not really pulling it all the way through until I get to the end, and then I'm gently pulling it through. And I call this combing it down, because it reminds me of pushing your hair when you go to braid or comb it. So now I'm gonna flip over, and I know I'm gonna run out, so I need to add another loop. So I open one up, I insert one end in, I pull the long tail through, and I gently, sometimes I just have to gently pull each side to connect. And I'll just do that one. So here we go. I'm previously over on that row. So I'm gonna go under and over and under and over and under and over. The plastic is real nice to work with because it is soft and pretty easy to push around. So now I think we're getting that pattern back where we can see our green. I flip it over and I check. I'm under here, so that means I want to start with an over. If my spacer moved a little bit, I'll adjust that. So I think I cut 12 strips of plastic, and that will fill about halfway up this cardboard. So as you can see, you just kind of got to keep going. If your bag has writing on it, you could sort of try to tuck that so you don't see as much of the writing, but I don't really mind seeing the writing. I think on this one I'll show you, it had green and black. You can't even tell that it's writing once it's all done. This is got the little bit of red in there. So I'm not too worried about the writing on the bags. You could use different colored bags. I'm gonna add another strip. You know, some bags are sort of brownish. The grocery bags, I think, are brownish. Sometimes there's colorful bags. So here we go. We're gonna go over and under, over and under, over and under, over and under. It does help if you say the words. And then we're gonna gently pull it through. I'm gonna slide the pencil out for a minute just because I wanna see how it goes without the pencil. Flipping. And we will continue. This way I'm gonna start under. Like I said, for this project, I was planning on using 2 bags to make a pouch approximately 5 by 8 or 5 by 7. This size is good as, you know, a pencil case or, you know, could carry some small coins in there or makeup brushes or something like that. I thought if I made it a little bigger, it might even fit my phone or sunglasses. Sunglasses would probably work in that one as well. Oh, look what I did. I started weaving before I added another loop. I got to talking. So I have this much. I think I can do it. Maybe I'll take out one under. So I'm gonna connect my loops again and gently pull them tight. And there we go. You'll figure out what works best for you, to add them one at a time or to make a long string of them. Sometimes the longer the string, then just the more you have. Okay, I'm gonna keep going with this one, and then I might pause the camera and come back with more done, because it might just get a little boring for you to watch me do this over and over. And when I come back, I will show you how we finish it off, take it off the loom, tie it off, add our buttons or anything else that we need to add. Okay, I'm back. And I'm just on my last 2 loops from my first bag. And I'm a little more than halfway. If I push down on what I've already woven, it definitely will get me just to halfway. Make a nice tighter weave that way. And I just wanted to point out that when I'm coming around to the other side, I'm looking at, at an under here, right? I'm under the green thread. So when I come around, I want to be over on the front side, which is right from the previous row because that plastic is under. So I'm over there and under. And as you work your way up the cardboard, the weaving is going to get tighter. So it might be a little trickier to get your yarn under there, your Plarn, excuse me, under your green yarn. We flip it, and I was over there, so that means I want to be under here. And I think I will go ahead and cut another bag just to add a few more rows. But you could stop after one if you felt that was the size pouch that you wanted. I'm just pushing down to make sure it's tight, because then there will be fewer openings in between the weaving. I'll go one more time here. So I'm over on the back side. That means I'm going to come under on the front side. Over, under, over, under, over, under. Feel like it's a little snake slithering its way through the grasses. Okay, I'm going to have to add. So just a little refresher on how we did that. We smoothed the bag out as best we could. We trimmed off the bottom, and we trimmed off the handles. Those parts are not usable for this project. Maybe you could find another use for them. That gives us just this big tube of plastic that we fold in half again. Trying to keep it somewhat straight. In half again. I might even just do one more half. It just makes it easier. Then I hold it with my thumb and finger and I cut my sections. About 1 inch. You'll see that different bags are made differently and might feel stronger or weaker. Which is why we want it to be a section about this wide. So here we have my loop. This one does feel a little thinner than the previous one I was working with, but I think it will be fine. I'm going to join them together. If it does feel thinner, I'll just pull on it a little more gently so as not to stretch it out. I'm under there, so I'm going to go over here. Over, under, over, under, over, under. And I think I'll do like 3 more passes. Now this bag, since it does feel thinner, it might not take up as much space. Like I got more out of the first bag than I might out of this bag. There's always variables. So I was under on the back side, so I'm going to be over here. This is where it gets tight. I'm going to go ahead and take out my spacer, and I just lift the yarn and push the head of the loop under with my forefinger. And that works pretty well for me. Everybody will figure out what works best for them. In fact, I am probably kind of weaving this upside down so that you guys can see it, but I find that to be an easy way to do it. If I was turned around this way, I'm not sure how I would do it. And I am left-handed, so I do like to kind of control things with my left hand. So I want to be under here. So that's kind of doing the picking up of the yarn, the left hand is. And then the right hand is pushing it through. And I'm not pulling it each time I go over under. I'm waiting until I get to the end and then pulling it across. And see the knots there, but that they all sort of blend in. I'm coming around to the front side now. And I'm going to go over that first thread and under, and continue like so. And I think I'll do one more, if you can bear with me, before we finish it off. So I'll tie on one more loop. Get lots of practice making your loops. I'm over on the thread on that side. Nope, actually it looks like I changed my pattern somehow. I repeated myself, over, under, over, under. Well, I'm gonna smush it together, and I'm gonna come back over here, and I'm gonna go over so that I have the alternate pattern there. I'll turn it on the other side, and I think you'll be able to see what I mean about, I must have done 2 rows at the same over, under. I've got 2 rows here. And I don't exactly know where I was off, but I probably flipped it, and after I tied it, didn't pay attention to where I was. So I'm under here. That means I want to be over on this side. Now this side is already over because of my error. So I am gonna go ahead and go over. Well, no, I'm gonna go under. I want to go opposite, and I think this will work itself out. Sometimes you have to make these mistakes to know what the consequences are, right? We've all made mistakes, and we've all had to live with the consequences. And in art making, sometimes you have to do it and see if that can be a happy accident mistake or a disaster. I think it'll be okay. It may just mean that the weaving isn't as close together or strong or tight. Now I'm flipping it over. I'm under here. That means I want to go over there. And I am off, but I'm at the end of my tail, so I am going to go ahead and loop this one through, making it opposite the previous one. If they all went the same, it wouldn't be as interlocking. So every other row alternating makes it more interlocking, which makes it stronger. Okay, I want to show you how I finish it off. This ending here, sometimes you can just take it and do what's called back weaving, or at least that's what I call it, and you reverse just gently over and under. If it still seems to be poking out, I like to take it and push it through the previous row and kind of get that tucked in there. And we're going to tie these off, so I think you'll see that that won't matter. So I basically came back, sorry about that, I came back and wove it, and then I woved it down into the previous row. Okay, this is the size of our pouch from bottom to top. We're gonna leave the bottom connected, but we're gonna cut the top threads one at a time and tie them off. So remember this knot that we made in the beginning? We're gonna pull that out from that slit. And then at the top, I'm gonna cut the yarn that's next to it. And I'm gonna tie those two in a double knot. 1 and 2. And you can see as I tied it, it tightened and it made it go down a little bit, and that's okay. Now I'm gonna flip to the back side. This is the other part of that one that we cut, and I'm gonna cut the one next to it, and I'm gonna tie those two together. I tie them in a knot once, and I tie them in a knot a second time. This is why I don't weave all the way to the top, because it makes it difficult to tie them off that way. I flip it over. This is the one that I cut. I cut the one next to it, and I tie it off. You can weave all the way to the top, and there are ways to remove it, especially if you're making a weaving that's like a wall hanging. But for our purposes, with this being a pouch, this is going to be the opening, the top opening. So this is where my little tail was. So let me show you that up close. I have my 2 strands of green, and this is the tail that I was back weaving. Can you see it here? I'm going to make sure that it is in my knot, right? So I am laying it through the yarn, the 2 yarns coming together, so that it is part of that knot. And make sure that knot is nice and tight. So there then is the tail, and it's knotted into there. And that should hold it for good. And I flip it over. I take the one that's already been cut. I cut the one next to it, and I tie it off. Always double knot so that it holds. This is the one that's been cut. I cut the one next to it, and I double knot. You get good at doing knots with short little threads. I flip it over. That's the one that's been cut. I cut the one next to it, and down the row we go. Knotting, knotting, and knotting. And that knot is securing the top edge of our pouch. And after you're done, if you want to cut all those little frays of yarn off, you can. On this one, I kind of left them long. This one, I cut them shorter, and then they were just sort of like a fringe. It's really up to you. You can start thinking about how you want it to look as you make it. You'll start to understand where you have some abilities to change things. Change the color of the bag, change the pattern a bit, change the color of the yarn. I should say that when you're weaving, we made the loom, which was the cardboard, and we wrapped it. That's called preparing the loom. We wrapped it with the yarn, and the official word for that would be, it would be called the weft. It's a funny word, weft, W-E-F-T. And then what you weave with, oh wait, I have that wrong, I apologize. It's the warp. See, I'm not a weaver. I just learned how to do it, and then I'm learning how to do it with reuse materials. And I find it very fascinating. So the green yarn is our warp. That's what's going up and down on the cardboard when we prepare the loom with our warp. And then the material that we weave in and out of the warp is called the weft. The warp and the weft. Those are official weaving terms. So I'm nearing the last couple stripes of my green yarn, tying it off. And I have one guy all by himself that doesn't have a mate for tying. So I think, remember that long tail that I left? Somebody was looking out for me. I'm just going to run that under a couple of rows, if I can. Get my, in fact, this might be a place where the paper clip can help me push it through. I'm going to bring it back up towards the top to join. And even though one is on the front and one is on the back, I'm gonna tie them together. Maybe not real tight, and maybe only one knot for right now. So after you've tied them all off, if you only have one left, then I would just tie that into to the one before it. I thought I was gonna have an even number, so that's something I'm gonna have to troubleshoot. But after you tie it off, you're going to gently slide your pouch down off the bottom. So I do it a little bit at a time. I do the corner, maybe the middle, and then the side. And then I'll pull maybe on the middle again, come to this end and do the corner, and then the middle, and it will eventually come. And remember your green yarn that was tucking into all those little slits now are going to come out. Takes a little bit of strength, but eventually it will come. And once it comes, you can sort of put your hand in there and form your bottom a little better. And this is what I mean about a tight weave. Up here, I think I was weaving tighter and pushing the rows down to compact. And down here, I was not compressing them or pushing them down as much. So you get a little more, like you get some openings, a little looser weave. So depending on what you're carrying, like if you're carrying a coin, it might fall out. This is the tail where I started, and it seems to be flopping in the wind there. So I am gonna gently weave that into the inside and come back out, and then weave it again to the inside. And I'm gonna tell you, I like this tighter weave better than this looser weave. So if I were you and I was weaving, I would really go ahead and comb those down and push them down. I thought I was doing it, but now I can really see the difference. So this is your pouch, okay? Let's go back to that one guy that I only knotted once. I see him here, and I want to re-knot him tighter and a second time. And I'm just gonna push him through one more of the loops. Yarn is a little bit stretchy. I think officially you want to use a cotton thread that's not so stretchy for your warp. This is our pouch. Now, let's talk about a closure. Here, I did a button in the center, and I secured some yarn of a contrasting color to the back side, if you will, so that when you close it, you bring that yarn forward and gently wrap it around your button. That's one way to close it. You could put multiple buttons and make a loop and have 2 or 3 buttons across the front. You could have long yarn like this that you just wrap around, and it wouldn't be a very tight closure. I have a couple buttons. Where are they? I had a red one and a black one. And I think on this one, I might cut some of these fringes a little shorter. If I had some contrasting color yarn for tying the buttons on, that would be great. All I really have is the string handy. I have more yarn at my studio, but not here with me at home. So we will make do with the green yarn that we have. I'm cutting these because I'm thinking it will be easier for you to see what I'm doing with the button closure. Okay, get all my scraps out of the way. So now I have my pouch. I'm gonna take about 8 inches of yarn, 6, 7, 8, and I'm gonna make a loop. So I really have twice that much. I have 8 and 8 is 16. And that gives me that loop. Now the nice thing about that plastic weaving is that it's soft and you can kind of push through. I am gonna start on the inside, and about 2 or 3 rows down, I'm pushing through the loop of green yarn. And then almost like the same way we made the Plarn, I'm gonna pull those loose ends through. And that gives me a string that is now attached to the back side of my pouch. And I'm gonna do another one. 6, 7, 8. So I have one long strand that is about 16 inches. It could be longer. I think shorter might give you a harder time to wrap around the button. And from the inside, about 3 rows down, I push through that loop. And then I bring the 2 pieces of yarn through that loop and tug softly on that. So now I have part of my closure done. And we'll put the button in the center. I'm gonna use some yarn, or I could use the white string that I have. I think this was from a kite. And don't need very much, maybe like 5 or 6 inches. And I'm gonna go up from the bottom. This button has pretty good size holes, so that I didn't need a needle or anything. And let's see, oops, I threaded the wrong one, I threaded the long one. I'm gonna go up from the bottom and then down. Sometimes the yarn sort of frays apart. Of course, now it doesn't want to go down through the hole. I'm gonna use a paper clip to kind of push it through. And then that comes through the other side. So I have my button thread, if you will, button string strung through the button. And then I just create a little opening there with my fingers, and I gently push that thread through to the inside. And I'm gonna knot it. Actually, I'm gonna wrap it around one of the plastic rows, bringing it back to the front, and then around again, pushing back through those rows to the back. And then I will knot it. There's lots of different ways that you could tie this on or sew this on. So now my button is on. I guess I'm slightly off-centered, but that's okay. And to close it, like I said, I wrapped my thread around and my thread around. And there is our pouch with a button closure. Interestingly, it's not that much bigger than the pouch I made with only one bag. I really was hoping to get it to be almost as tall as this. Like I said, I thought of like my phone or my sunglasses. It's not quite size enough for the phone. The phone might be heavy in there. But when I made these, I used these for pens and pencils inside my backpack, because that way the tip wouldn't break, or if the top came off, then I wouldn't get marker on anything. So it was just a real simple way to have my writing utensils protected in my backpack. Good luck, I hope it works. Certainly feel free to email us with any questions. Happy weaving.